Welcome, everybody, to another episode of This Week in Football. It is a big day here as it is finally the end of the NFL season. And we've got, of course, our resident Eagles fan very, very happy because the Philadelphia Eagles have won the Super Bowl over the Kansas City Chiefs in New Orleans. My name is Andrew Howe, joined alongside Xavier. Xavier, I have to imagine you're doing pretty good. What's up? How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Definitely good. Definitely because the Eagles won, and I actually went to the game.
I know. You had a really cool opportunity. You got to go over to New Orleans into the Superdome, watch the game, and watch your team win the Super Bowl, and that's something that not a lot of fans ever get to experience. So, let's talk about the game overall, but we can also talk about your experience, going into it as well. I mean, first of all, just the environment of being in a stadium like that. Like, what was it like?
It was like something that I've never experienced before. Like all the fans are all like diehards there. Not saying on the Chiefs side, no bandwagon, but um, it was definitely a cool experience. Like all like the Super Bowl things hanging up, and it was like definitely a different atmosphere from like a regular game. I would say it's like the final game of the season. It's like the biggest game of the season, so there's definitely like more hype. It's like just like so cool. And yeah, Louisiana I thought did like a great job. It was like really fun there, even before the game and like after the game.
Did you get to explore any of New Orleans at all as well? What did you think of the city?
I thought it was like it's just like a party city there, to be honest. And I thought they had like really great food with like like gumbo and like the fried stuff. I thought it was
Yeah.
really good. And yeah, my dad took me down Bourbon Street at night, and it was crazy.
Yeah, definitely a really cool experience, especially like because it's a Super Bowl and you got a lot of really big football fans in the area as well, just like going crazy. It must have been a lot of fun. But let's get into talking about the actual game here a little bit because it was not necessarily the closest game, and I think that's a big testament to how good the Eagles played on both sides of the ball. I mean, just walk us through, Xavier, that first half and what it felt like. You get that first early touchdown off of the Jalen Hurts tush push and then just seeing the defense come up with stops after time after time.
Yeah, and when like the confetti actually dropped, like I was just like waiting for the moment because you knew it was like already happening because I feel like we had it from almost the start, just from how the Eagles were playing and Jalen Hurts, of course, he had an amazing performance.
Yeah, definitely. And it started in the first quarter with the Jalen Hurts tush push, and it felt like the defense for Philadelphia was doing really really good. Obviously, there
Yeah,
was the Cooper DeJean pick six, the first pick six of his career on his birthday. It must have been a really cool experience to watch that one as well.
yeah, and the game that they had in the Super Bowl really just represented their whole season. Of course, like number one ranked defense, and their D line was absolutely just disrupting Patrick Mahomes, and he did not have a lot of time because the pressure rate was really quick, and they always got to him. And also those two picks, of course, Zach Bond and Cooper DeJean, really cool pick six on his birthday in the Super Bowl. It's kind of crazy,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Now, here's the thing about this game. I remember watching it and seeing how Kansas City's defense was attacking the Eagles, and they really limited Saquon Barkley, their star player, for the whole season. He didn't end up with a touchdown. He finished with only 57 yards on 25 attempts. And so, if the main goal here for the Chiefs was to stop Saquon, they definitely did that. However, it didn't allow them to win the game, obviously, because the rest of the offense was still able to do really well.
yeah, and I see how the Chiefs' game plan, of course, is to stop the number one running back in the league. But that did really open up the passing lanes for Jalen Hurts, and that's what led him to the Super Bowl MVP, which many people thought was going to be Saquon. But of course, the defensive focus was stop Saquon. So, Jalen Hurts had to do his thing, and it was the right time.
Yeah, and I mean, what do you think about Jalen Hurts winning the MVP? Obviously, he I think has gotten a little bit of criticism throughout the season as being, not having to do too much on the team, but it felt like he did a really good job at facilitating the offense as a whole. He had three total touchdowns. He threw for 221 yards. Was able to make the deep shots when it mattered most, and it seemed like he's gotten better and better every single game of the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. And he also had like great game against the Commanders. and like it just like proves the doubters wrong. Everyone was saying, "Oh, Jalen Hurts, he's not going to have a great passing game in the playoffs, and like he's not a top 10 quarterback." But they definitely proved it wrong. Super Bowl MVP. He's definitely a clutch player, shows up in the right times, and has a better game than Patrick Mahomes, which is kind of hard to beat.
Yeah, that was maybe a little bit surprising to see Mahomes, I think, have his worst playoff game probably ever. If I had to think, at least back to recent memory. He has three touchdowns at the end of it, but two of them were kind of in garbage time. There was like a crazy pass to Xavier Worthy at the very end of the game, but it just made it like an 18-point game. It didn't really matter, but it seemed like he was getting pressured really heavily. The offensive line really didn't seem like it was doing a good job against the Eagles. I think Mahomes got sacked like 7 or 8 times this game, which was very close to, if not breaking, a Super Bowl record for the Eagles.
Yeah, definitely. And like literally all they did was just get to him every single time, and he had no choice but to either just like chuck up a throw. He really didn't have time to make like the perfect decision. And like everyone on the D line, Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, and Nolan Smith Jr., all of them had a great game. And they just like showed what they did all year to all the fans.
Yeah, and this was an Eagles team that looked very different than the one that ended up getting knocked out of the playoffs very early last season, Xavier. They made a lot of big changes, most notably adding Saquon Barkley as their running back, and also, really, I think, rounding out the defense in a nice way, to make sure that they were really full there. But it's been a while since the Eagles won a Super Bowl. I mean, it was about 6 years ago, and the roster looked almost completely different. But going into that game, that first game of the season, it seemed like the Eagles were maybe struggling a little bit to start the year off. They were 2-2 heading into their bye week. At that point in the year, did you have any expectations for this Eagles team, and did you think that they had any chance of winning the Super Bowl?
I thought they had some chances at the beginning of the year, but I definitely did not think they were the heavy favorite, which I hoped they would to be, or even like top three contender. But of course, they proved them wrong, even me wrong, and finished the season 14-3. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, 14-3, and then winning four playoff games in a row. So the end of the season with only, I think, winning only losing one game and winning 15 of them in a row, and that, of course, that one game being the one where Jalen Hurts was out for a majority of it. So very, very impressive stuff from the Eagles. They had a fantastic season. The general management did an awesome job building this roster, and now they're champions. And I guess on the other side here for the Chiefs, what do you think that their next moves are? Because it seemed like they tried to fill in their roster with a ton of veterans throughout the year due to injuries. People like Kareem Hunt and DeAndre Hopkins coming in later in the season, Juju as well. Do you think that this Kansas City team will still continue to be good, or do you think, in a way, was this their all of the very close games and all of the mistakes that were not getting punished, potentially getting forgive or getting karma here in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I feel like it is a little bit of karma. Karma. I think it might be their turn to pass the dynasty on to someone else. But of course, Patrick Mahomes is always going to be there. I just don't know if they're always going to be the team that people are going to say, "Oh, they have a really high chance of making the Super Bowl." But like the GM, general managing needs to do like a really good job to find more weapons. I know you got Worthy, but like really, there isn't anyone else. Then Kelsey, I feel like he's still going to be there, but he might go away. And also the running back is questionable, but I think their defense is good enough and Super Bowl worthy.
Yeah, the last time somebody named Kelsey was playing in the Super Bowl and lost, they ended up retiring the next year. That was Travis's brother Jason. Do you think that has any opportunity here for Travis, or do you think he's going to play another year because he didn't really have a very good game in the Super Bowl?
I think he might play one final year next year. I don't really think he can retire, but there is a possibility.
Yeah. I think for Kansas City overall, have getting somebody like Xavier Worthy is going to be awesome for them to kind of have be the next section of the dynasty, if you will. Having him plus Rashee Rice, who's going to eventually come back from that injury, is going to be very good for them. If they can figure out what the running back situation looks like, if Pacheco is able to be fully healthy for the start of next year, I think this Kansas City team will have a good chance of coming back relatively strong. But This was the opportunity to pull off history and make it a three-peat, but they just were barely unable to do so. So congratulations here for the Philadelphia Eagles as they are your Super Bowl 59 champions. Now, we had some other stuff happen around the NFL over the last couple of weeks, and so we'll hit on some of those as well before we close out the show. The first thing I think we want to do is take a look at the NFL awards. That the award show happened a few days before the Super Bowl, and some surprises, I would say, in terms of who ended up winning. Most notably, Xavier, the MVP. Now, we did our little predictions of who was going to win, and we both said Lamar Jackson was our pick to win MVP, but it looks like the committee went for Josh Allen.
Yep. And a lot of people thought it was gonna be Lamar just because of the All Pro and his stats, but I mean, it just goes to show they thought he had less weapons, so that's why I feel like that's maybe what mainly why they gave him the award. Also because he kind of just carried the offense and just like presence was just like amazing for the Bills and just fell short to Kansas City, but I just thought Lamar got a bit snubbed there just because of his stats. They're just too crazy.
Yeah, I mean, again, throwing for 4,000, rushing for 800, eventually hitting 1,000 rushing yards, including the playoffs. And I wonder if at all did that playoff game between the Bills and the Ravens play any effect into it. I know that that's not supposed to be considered in this. It's always a regular season award, but maybe some biases ended up happening because of the head-to-head that they ended up playing in the postseason. And Lamar didn't have as good of a game, I would say, as Josh Allen, who was able to hold on to the ball and keep control of things throughout. Do you think that had any role in it, or do you think the voters just thought Josh Allen had the better full season?
For some people maybe, but I don't really think it did because I can definitely see how some people thought Josh was gonna win the MVP before that game, and also yeah, I don't think it played that much perspective into the award. Well, it definitely shouldn't have because it's regular season award.
Yeah. Definitely shouldn't have, but I wonder maybe if that ended up being a thing. Taking a look at some of the other NFL awards, Kevin O'Connell from the Vikings won Coach of the Year. I know we were maybe thinking about Dan Campbell getting a shout out, but it looks like it went to Kevin O'Connell there. Comeback Player of the Year went to Joe Burrow. Kind of funny that he's won that award twice now, just because he's come back from injuries and been really good all the time.
Yeah, of course, coming back from the injury, he had an amazing game. I also think if they made the playoffs, he could definitely be in the MVP conversation just because of his stats and how like all the offense ran through him.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. Every time he talks in any interviews or something, always mentions like his big guys. It's him, Jamar, and T. Higgins, and as we approach the offseason, it's going to be very interesting to watch to see how the Bengals manage and try to retain this core of players because it seems like all three of them really want to be able to stay together, but we'll see if the Bengals actually are going to let them do that as the offseason is coming up very, very shortly, and that's going to result in some big questions here. Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year went to Saquon and Pat Surtain. I feel like we both were on the same in the same boat for that one. So we were also for Offensive Rookie of the Year with Jaden Daniels winning that one. Defensive Rookie of the Year went to Jared Verse on the Rams. I know you were hoping for some of your Eagles maybe to get a shout out here, but Jared Verse had I think a really good season overall as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think we both also thought that too. Jared Verse would win.
Yeah. So I think overall we did a pretty good job with our predictions, Xavier.
Yeah, I
So
thought we.
yeah.
Oh, we also got Ben Johnson.
Oh, really? Did we predict that one too? Was that the assistant coach of the year award?
Yeah,
Okay. Hey. So maybe if we got a ballot, we would have ended up being pretty similar to what the awards ended up being. That's pretty awesome. All right. So we, as well as some of the NFL awards, we also had the Pro Bowl happen last week. Did you get to watch any of those games or the flag football game at the end as well? I know it's been a little bit since that happened, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
yeah. I thought they did a great job. I liked like the events that they did, and like I like punt perfect. I thought that was pretty cool, and it also went into overtime. That's pretty cool, and like I feel like they really brought like the right events. Especially like on the flag football day. I thought those events were really fun and cool, and that viewers would like to see. And the flag football game, it was pretty fun to watch, but it's still like not as competitive. I feel like as viewers would really want, but it's still fun to watch.
I think the best part was definitely the flag football game because it's just really cool seeing like all the pro quarterback and just seeing everybody like play kind of casually, but you can just also tell how good of an athletes they are. Just watching like Joe Burrow throw like 50-yard touchdown passes like in without wearing like any uniforms and things like that. And when it happened in the past, obviously the Pro Bowl with like a real football game, those guys weren't really trying very hard either. So I think at least like keeping it in like a lighthearted setting, is a good thing. I will say I think that some of the games that they played in during the weekend might have been a little bit silly, but I liked a good chunk of them. I like the one where it was like the dunk contest, but you had to just make like a cool catch. That was like an interesting concept. So
Yeah.
what was your favorite activity here in the Pro Bowl? Was it
Um.
the punt one? Because I thought it was cool because it wasn't just the punters who participated. There was also like other people that played in it as well.
I really like the flag football, but like of the other events, I thought like the punt perfect was pretty cool because
It's-
it went into overtime, and then like also is like it was just like fun to watch.
Yeah, I also think dodgeball is fun, even though it's like
Yeah.
kind of random. Like I don't know why they're like playing dodgeball, but it's just fun to watch anyway. And it's just cool to see like as well like all the players on all the different teams having fun with each other and like talking and high fiving and like being on the same team even after they were kind of enemies throughout the whole rest of the season. So, um, yeah, I think that overall decent, and it was a good way to still get a little bit of football even though there was nothing else happening.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought it was a good Pro Bowl this year.
Yeah. Okay. The last thing we're going to do here on the show, Xavier, is talk about some trade rumors. As all of a sudden, with the season ending, that is starting up now. There's a couple of big stars that are likely going to be moved by the end of the offseason going into the 2025 year. The first one we should talk about is Myles Garrett, the lead defensive end on the Browns. He requested a trade after playing a lot of really solid seasons there. He's been through a whole bunch of the ups and downs in that Cleveland organization. He's been their franchise player, but it seems like at this point in his career, he prioritizes trying to get a win or be on a winning team, and it's going to be weird to see him in a different uniform now, Xavier.
Yeah, it is. And of course he's not going to come back to Cleveland Browns. I think we know that. Yeah, I can see how he really just wants to be on a winning team because, of course, he's obviously a legend and he deserves like a good team. So I see why he wants to trade request.
Now, do you have any potential guesses on where he could go? I know it's like very hard to predict, but what teams do you think like could maybe both afford him in terms of money, and then also do you think that he'd want to go to try to win?
I'm just looking at this trade proposal. Um, well, this one doesn't necessarily say a team that would want to win, but it says Chicago Bears.
Okay.
And the Browns received two first round picks, one for this year and one for the next year, and a second round pick this year. So I think the Browns could definitely benefit from those picks, and I think the Bears they have a good shot of being good this year. But I don't know if it's like well, if he's looking for in the radius of 5 years to be great, I think he's going to the right team in the Chicago Bears in this one.
I would say the Bears have a better future than the Browns do, definitely. But in terms of if they're going to be like a playoff contender, it's going to be an interesting question because that division in the NFC North is just so strong. And the Bears definitely struggled a little bit, especially in Caleb Williams' first season. So um, that could be a possibility. The Bears have the capital to try to go for that. I'm also seeing the Lions and the Packers. So it just seems like everyone in the NFC North might just want to try to get him, which makes sense because those guys are all really competitive teams. They all play really tough defense as well, and so getting somebody like Myles Garrett would always be a really good thing.
Yeah.
Another big person that's on the trading block here is Cooper Kupp on the Los Angeles Rams. It seems like the Rams are the ones who are going to try to move Kupp after the end of the season. Of course, he had a great career over there. He's won a Super Bowl there in Los Angeles, and now could potentially be on the move. What do you think about Cooper Kupp's season overall, or just like how good do you think he is as a player right now?
Well, of course he's still good, but he's definitely I feel like he's a bit declining a bit in his just his abilities to be a star. But I think he's still a good option for other teams. Maybe the Rams are just looking to move on, even though he's a star. He's just getting older, 31 years old. But he's still a great player.
Now, what kind of team do you think would be able to or would want to try to trade for Cooper Cup? Because it is a kind of weird situation where you might not want him to be your wide receiver one, but if he's paired alongside maybe another superstar, he could be really, really effective. What do you think?
Another superstar. I'm seeing this with Cooper Cup to the Cowboys, and he gets paired up with CeeDee Lamb, even though they're not a team that's necessarily going to win next, gonna have to be great next year. But him with CeeDee Lamb, that'll be a pretty good duo. If they potentially get a quarterback that'll fit in there.
I agree with you there. I think that the Cowboys would be a really good fit. The only thing you'd have to worry about is just money because I know that there's a lot of, highly paid contracts. Notably, Dak Prescott is getting paid a lot of money right now. So just making sure that the cap ends up working out. But having Cooper Cup and CeeDee Lamb on the same team would be a really good situation, I think, for the Cowboys if they want to try to get back on the right track. I'm going to say this. I'm seeing a rumor here for the Steelers as well. I feel like that could be a good fit, especially depending on what the Steelers decide
Yeah,
to
I
do
like
in their quarterback position. If they want to play with Russell Wilson again, maybe that's a good option. Or if they try to go for a different free agent quarterback, I think Cooper Cup being on that team alongside George Pickens really enhances that receiving core here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh really needs a receiver right now. Of course, Jordan Pickens is a star, but it's just not enough for them. And pairing him with Cooper Cup will be great for Russ. And I think Pickens will have a great season, and Cup will always be there for the number two target. And I think it's a great fit.
Yeah. Our last one, I guess, that we should talk about, which happened just a couple of days ago, is Debo Samuel, who, after meeting with the 49ers staff, was told that he was likely going to be traded. Now, this guy did not have as good of a season as either of the names that we've already discussed in Miles Garrett or Cooper Kupp. Debo, I think, really had a down year, and including his injuries, was one of the big reasons why the 49ers were so disappointing and ended up missing the playoffs this season. So, what kind of team do you think would want to take a chance on somebody like Debo, who was suffering from injuries, has had concerns about his health, I would say, for a little bit, and is now approaching 30 years old at this point?
Yeah, and he just on a decline from a few seasons ago. Of course, he didn't have a great year, and definitely not what they're liking to see out of him from the start of the year. But I still think there might be some teams looking to trade for him. I'm looking at the Broncos here. They definitely are in need for a receiver. I feel like Devo will, if he has a good year, he'll be a great fit for them. Even if he's made just like another target for Bonix, because he definitely does not have enough, and he definitely is a star quarterback. So pairing him with the potential baby star will be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm wondering, if it's, a little bit too much veterans in terms of the wide receivers, if with both him and Cortland Sutton, they'd both be 29 years old, but I feel like they're both good enough where it would make sense for, somebody like him to go to Denver. I think Pittsburgh also makes sense for somebody like Debo, just in terms of being like a solid number two. And I think those are the teams really that would benefit from getting another really, really good wide receiver, at least on the top of my mind. Unless, of course, you see a situation where he goes somewhere like the Raiders or something like that, just to dump him off somewhere, because obviously the Raiders would take him, but I don't think that's necessarily somewhere that Devo would want to go.
Yeah, definitely. I see how Debo really wants to win.
Definitely.
I feel like he's that type of guy. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where all these players end up signing. I don't like, free agency and things like that will kick off in a little bit. But we'll make sure to keep you guys updated with all the big news every couple of weeks as we go into the off season here on This Week in Football. But we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in every single week here of the season. Xavier, before we go, next year's Super Bowl prediction. Let's do a really way too early prediction. Do you think your Eagles are gonna repeat, or do you have somebody else as potentially a favorite?
I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it.
Okay, so you don't even want to say anybody. Okay. Well, maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it after some of the rosters get formulated a little bit. But because there's a lot of.
I can say prediction. I'm just saying that I'm not going to put the Eagles in it for jinx.
Okay, so who do you think, or who do you think is a team that you predict is going to be in the Super Bowl next year?
We'll take Commanders versus. Let me see. Commanders versus Bengals.
Wow. Okay, that was a really good regular season game. This season as well. That went all the way to like I think it was like 38-35 or something like that.
I'm going crazy. So if I get it correct, then
Then you
I'll
look
be
like
really
a
happy.
genius. Yeah. I'll say Bills Lions. I think that was a game that I think a lot of people wanted to see. It was a really good regular season game this year as well, so that'll be my prediction. And then we'll see, if we end up being correct or not, because I feel like teams like the Eagles and the Chiefs are definitely gonna want to try to make a return to the Super Bowl as well. But that's gonna do it for our episode this week. We'll see you all later as we approach the off season. But Xavier, one last time for 2024, what do you have to say?
Go Birds. Peace.
Peace out, everybody. Congratulations to the Eagles, and we'll see you all next time.